Do you like reptiles so much that you want to work with them for a living? Today I'm going to be sharing with you the career fields that you have as options that deal with reptiles. After brainstorming, Ed and I came up with 7 different professions that involve reptiles to some degree. Since I have either personally researched each one or gone to college for them or actually worked in the field in each of these positions, I figured it'd be a good opportunity to share with you my experiences and my thoughts so that you can set yourself up for success. Anyway, today I'll be sharing with you the pros and cons to each of these career choices, as well as touching a little bit on the education you'll need and the experience that you will need in order to land a job in one of these fields. Let's start with one of the more obvious ones, a vet tech or a veterinary technician. Being a vet tech has probably crossed your mind before if you're an animal lover of any type of animal, really. It's kind of an umbrella term to assisting veterinarians in their day-to-day work with animals. So your duties as a vet tech will include things such as administering medication, taking samples, wrapping wounds with bandages, and checking the vital signs of animals that come into the clinic that you are working at. This is a great position if you want to be really hands-on with animals every day. You're moving around, not stuck at a cubicle, and honestly, every day is going to be different if you are a veterinary technician. Although, if you consider yourself a reptile enthusiast and reptile specialist, it is important to know that as a vet tech, most of the animals you'll be seeing and tending to are going to be furry. So they're going to be cats and dogs primarily, with rabbits and other animals as well, with some reptiles here and there, unless you can land a job at a clinic that specializes in reptiles and amphibians, which are sadly not that common. Of course, you have to be comfortable with the fact that you'll be cleaning up a lot of poop. Being a vet tech doesn't mean playing with animals all day. It's administering those medications and cleaning up a lot of their messes. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, you are on your feet all day and you are busy the entire time. And unfortunately, being a veterinary technician isn't gonna make you a millionaire. The average salary for a vet tech in 2017 was $32,000 if I remember correctly. I'll put a link to it in the description below. So, I mean, $32,000 is a livable salary, but you're not gonna get rich off of it. So just know that you won't be poor, but you won't be able to buy that pair of black-headed pythons that you might want to add to your collection. In the vet tech line of work, there are pretty much 2 routes for your college degree that you can take in order to qualify yourself for one of these positions. And they are the only difference between the two is how long you stay in college. The first of which would qualify you as a veterinary technician, would require you to go to college for 2 years for an associate's degree in veterinary technology. This is a great way to start, although it's important to know that this job field is in high demand, so clinics are quite possibly going to look past applicants who only have a 2-year degree, and they're going to look for the people who have a 4-year degree instead. That 4-year degree is what I'd actually recommend you get. It's basically the same major, it's veterinary technology, but you stay in school for 4 years to get a bachelor's in it, and that's what will make you a veterinary technologist instead of a veterinary technician. They're very similar positions. Technologists sometimes work more in labs instead of clinics, and they do like experimental testing and sampling. But if you just want to work at a clinic, I would still recommend getting the 4-year degree in veterinary technology because it'll make you that much more hireable and noticeable to a hiring clinic. The next step above a vet tech would of course be a veterinarian. This requires a lot of schooling, however. You're going to have to get your doctorates in veterinary technology, which requires 8 years of college. This can mean substantial debt after college, and it means a lot of time that you have to put into researching and learning about veterinary technology. If you are driven, go for it. That is awesome, but also know that if you are a veterinarian, the most successful ones are those that own their own veterinary clinic, so it's good to have a bit of a business background as well, since you'll be basically maintaining your own business. The good thing about being a veterinarian is that after you're out of college, you should hopefully be making between $80,000 and $90,000 a year. Now, a lot of that is going to go back to paying your tuition from college, but after that's paid off, you can make a decent amount as a veterinarian if you own your own clinic. But it is a lot of work and money to get to that point. If you prefer not to go into the veterinary field, one position I recommend is a wildlife biologist. People with this profession are out in the field conducting surveys or animal counts, and they're seeing how populations rise and decline every year and what they can do to best conserve those species in the wild. So it's good to be an outdoorsy person, of course, because you will be in the wind and the rain and the snow and the heat. I was trained to be a wildlife biologist in college, but then I realized how much of a cold baby I am, so I kind of altered my paths, and for a couple other reasons too. But regardless, you have to be comfortable being outside in all weather conditions. You also have to be a very patient person because you will often spend like hours outside in the field conducting a survey, and it's not actively counting, it's waiting and listening for different bird calls throughout the course of like 4 hours. So you need a lot of patience to be a wildlife biologist. And you're not always going to be in the field either. A lot of your time will be spent doing calculations on population ecology and numbers and growth, and that of course will be at a computer back at your office. So although some of it is hands-on and you're actually working with the animals, those wild animals in the field, a lot of it is computer work too. But if this is something that strikes your fancy, then I would recommend getting either a bachelor's or a master's degree in a related field, such as wildlife management or fisheries and wildlife, which was my major. The more education you get, the more likely you will be to get hired for a position like a wildlife biologist. Other majors you could pursue for this type of job would be like ecology or just a general biology major. Having a bachelor's or master's in kind of a more general major like just biology is kind of nice because it'll allow you to be more flexible in what exact job you can get after graduating college. However, if you want to get a job as like a field biologist, it is essential to get experience before your college education is complete. Because I'm sure after you graduate, you're going to want your full-time position. And those positions are hard to get in the field. I'll tell you more about it later. But if you want to get a wildlife biologist position, not only do you need education, but you need a ton of experience under your belt in order to be considered for one of those full-time permanent jobs. Experience that you can get would be things like volunteering for field surveys with your local herpetological society, or working with counts, or like population counts. Basically, I recommend just contacting your local DNR agent and seeing if they have any volunteer opportunities for you to start getting that experience built up. It's never too early to start volunteering for the line of work you want to work for in the future. Because of all the technical skills required to learn in order to become a wildlife biologist, there's a pretty decent salary involved with it. After you get a 4-year degree and a little experience and you land that permanent job, you can expect to eventually earn about $60,000 a year. But of course, all these numbers I'm mentioning are highly variable based on your experience and how long you've been with said organization. Basically, this will be a position where you are working directly with animals at a zoo, which involves a lot of cleaning, a lot of food preparation, and administering medications when and if needed. If you want to become a zookeeper, the good news is a lot of those places don't require a college education or a college degree. The bad news is because of that, it's not a very high-paying position. You can expect to make around $20,000 a year on average. But that's kind of what you can expect for a position that doesn't require secondary education and it's just an entry-level position. You can of course build up from there and earn more money the longer you are with that zoo, but it's still not going to make you a ton of money unless you go back to school while working for the zoo to get more of a business background, and then maybe you can look into zoo management positions. But that's going to get away from working hands-on with reptiles and other animals. If a zookeeper position sounds right for you though, then I recommend volunteering now at a zoo. Most zoos require that you have at least like 1 or 2 years of unpaid volunteer work before they'll even consider you for a paid position. And this is kind of an issue I ran into when I was considering maybe being a zookeeper. I wanted to do it, but I had already graduated college, and I looked at the requirements, and I needed to have already had a couple of years of experience, which I had no time to get at that point since I didn't have it already. So if you want to be a zookeeper, start volunteering right now so that you can get a position in the future. Another position that involves wildlife, including reptiles, that I would recommend is an interpretive naturalist. This is actually the position I was straight out of college. And what being a naturalist means is promoting conservation by educating the public about natural resources. This is usually done through interactive, hands-on programs like what I do at schools and libraries to connect park visitors to those natural resources, whether it be a program about reptiles or birds or bugs or geology or trees. I really like doing programs about trees, by the way. Anyway, programs will involve anything natural resource related. Places that will hire a naturalist include state parks, county parks, and nature centers. It really depends on your government's funding, though, or the nature center's funding, on how often those positions are available. If you are an interpretive naturalist, you will be on your feet for quite a bit of the day because you're walking on trails, because you're usually stationed at like a state park. So you're walking on trails, you're talking with the public, you're talking with campers if your park has a campsite area. And part of your job will also be indoors at the computer prepping future programs, like getting props ready and figuring out your objectives for your programs. So there is some planning and some computer work involved. However, I will say when I was a naturalist, about 60 to 70% of my day was spent outdoors talking to people and connecting them with wildlife or other natural resources. So it was a lot of fun. The only downside is that interpretive naturalist positions are often seasonal and temporary, or both. I had a position that lasted 2 summers, and so it was just 3 months during the year, during the summer months, when our park was the busiest. And that meant that throughout the rest of the year, I had to find a different job. After doing 2 summers at this position, I decided, I really need something that's more permanent and year-round. And that's why I left being an interpretive naturalist and instead ended up starting snake discovery so I could do programs year-round. Depending on the government or nature center's funding, there may be like an occasional full-time year-round naturalist position. As you can imagine though, these are very highly contested, so you need a lot of experience under your belt, usually volunteer work or seasonal work at that park to help kind of make yourself stand out a little bit more, but they're very competitive positions. After my 2 summers as a seasonal naturalist, I was trying to get one of those permanent year-round positions. I just couldn't do it though because I only had 2 summers of experience behind me. It's much easier to get one of these seasonal positions than year-round, but if you are able to land one of those permanent year-round naturalist positions, then you can expect to earn between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. Of course, again, depending on the organization's funding. If you don't mind working with people and with products and like stocking shelves, then working in the retail industry might not be a bad idea for you either. If you're working in retail like at a pet store or even better, a reptile specialty store, you will be working with animals a lot along with people, so of course you have to be a people person in order to do this kind of a job. But for some people, the corporate life just isn't right for them. So it wasn't for me. I was working at a large chain retail pet store for actually about 10 years off and on, and then I decided, I need to do something on my own, and that was another reason why I left and started snake discovery. But if you don't mind the retail world, then working at a pet store is not a bad idea. It's an entry-level position that doesn't require a college degree at all. But again, just like the zookeeper position, that's going to reflect in the amount of money you make. You're not going to make as much as you would in some of those other fields that require a college degree, unless you end up moving up the corporate ladder and doing more of a managerial position. But just like a zookeeper position, if you switch and become more into the management area of that business or organization, then you will have less hands-on time with reptiles, of course. Retail work, though, is very repetitive. Like, you will be doing the same tasks every week, week after week. Monday is cleaning these enclosures, Tuesday is stocking these shelves, Wednesday you do this, and then it just repeats again the following week. But if you like having a set scheduled type of job, along with working with both people and animals, which again, in retail, you're not going to be playing with the snakes or other animals throughout the day. You're strictly going to be caring for them, cleaning and feeding, and really not much interaction. Just keep that in mind. But if all of that sounds okay to you, then retail at like a pet store, or if you have one near you, a reptile specialty store, might not be a bad idea for you. Another position which I actually didn't think of until just right now would be exactly what I do and doing educational reptile programs. Now, snake discovery started when I really wanted to continue doing educational programming after being a naturalist. I wanted to specialize in reptile programs, and of course there was no organization around me that did that, so I just had to start my own business that did that. And it has been very successful. I've been very happy and quite fortunate with how well it is doing, to the point where I can do this full time now. But let me tell you, the first year and a half, I would say, I was spending all of my time on the computer and advertising, spreading word. I was doing free programs just to get my name out there. It was a ton of work, like you can't even imagine. It has been worth it. All of that hard work is now worth it because I can do this full time. But it's tough for people who can't dedicate or donate like a year or a year and a half of their time with very little pay in order to possibly, not even 100% guarantee, but just to possibly have a business take off. Thankfully, because of Ed, if you're watching this, Ed, I really love you, he was really supportive, and he had a position that was able to support the two of us while I pursued this business. And that was one of the main reasons why it ended up working out. If you have the passion and the drive to do it, there is definitely a chance that you can be successful in reptile programs too. On that same subject, people also ask me how they can become a reptile YouTuber. And being a YouTuber, you know, it's kind of a hit or miss. You either get lucky or you don't. I think I lucked out because I had the background in doing reptile programs to help me out and to help me present educational matter. And I also had some software skills based on my college degree in fisheries and wildlife, like with the counts and calculations that I had to do. And I had to do some programming in college for my degree. Things just lined up perfectly so that doing videos on YouTube happened to work out really well with the other things I've got going on. Being a YouTuber isn't something that I would recommend you quit your job to pursue. It's something that you should do on the side while you still have your primary job that you're working 40 hours a week. If it takes off, then great, you can quit and become a YouTuber, but don't quit your day job in hopes that you'll become a super famous YouTube star with reptiles. I didn't. I still work my full-time job, and I would recommend that you don't quit yours either. But that doesn't mean that you should not pursue doing YouTube videos or doing a channel about reptiles. If reptiles are your passion and you really love them, then you should be doing YouTube just because you love reptiles. Although that covers pretty much all of the career paths I wanted to touch on, I know a lot of people also want to become full-time reptile or snake breeders, so I do want to talk about that briefly too. I don't mean to kill the mood or kill any dreams, but there's only like 2 people that I know of, 2 organizations or businesses really, that are full-time breeding reptiles for a living. Unless you are producing thousands upon thousands of reptiles every year and you're able to move them, like sell them, it's just not that lucrative of a business to be a snake breeder. I really hate to say it because I know a lot of you want to become that full-time breeder, but it's good to know the reality of it and that it likely won't happen. But that doesn't mean you can't breed snakes as like a side project or a side hobby. Just make sure you still have a full-time job elsewhere so that you can take care of your food bill, you take care of your rent or your mortgage, take care of all your other bills, and then you can still breed reptiles for fun and make a little bit of money on the side. You just won't be able to make a 100% living off of it. And just like me, I mean, I do YouTube videos, I do my programs at schools and scouts, I also organize expos and events. So I do a lot in addition to breeding some snakes, and I honestly don't breed a lot. I mean, I'll probably be pairing up maybe like 10 pairs of snakes this summer. That's not a lot. You have to breed, again, thousands of snakes in order to make a living out of it. Overall, the points to take home from this video would be to research the positions you are interested in to see if the job description is something that you want to work with and pursue. And if it is, know that a lot of people also want to work with animals for a living. It's a very competitive field, and jobs are not only few and far between, but they are so competitive. It is so tough to even be considered and brought in for an interview for one of those positions. So that's why you need to have at least a 4-year degree, not just a 2-year degree, to get a job in an animal field, in my position anyway, as well as experience, a couple of years of experience under your belt before you even graduate from college. So when you're going to college, also volunteer for the line of work that you want to do in the future, and that is what will set you up for the best success after you graduate. Those are pretty much the main career paths that we could come up with when brainstorming for this video, and it's good to be aware of them all, plus others, so continue doing your research. And by the way, if you can think of another career path that involves reptiles, feel free to comment it in the description below so people can scroll down and see some other suggestions on there. Maybe include the pros and cons of each if you work in that field yourself. I do want to thank you for watching today's video, and we'll see you next time.